Good afternoon, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session, Rumination with Andrew. Thank you so much for joining as we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. And this afternoon, we are going to focus our attention on two things. Who is Marco Rubio, the Secretary of the United States? I left my little thing here. And also the fact that Donald Trump is wielding his foreign policy, his big stick, over the heads of Jamaica and the region. Now, it seems to me that Marco Rubio, very interesting character, at least, and remember now that Marco Rubio has a history of not really being in favor of Donald Trump. In fact, there are some commentators, US commentators, who are suggesting that they're giving Marco Rubio at least 2 years, if that much, that many, in that position as Secretary of State. They don't think that he's going to outlive his tenure in that position as Secretary of State of the United States. Now, there are lots of things to unpack. The fact is that Marco Rubio went to Jamaica and pretended as if he, did not know many things, right? He pretended as if he's suggesting that if Jamaica does not, I'm looking for something here. If Jamaica does not adhere to, the labor laws, to, amicable and, legal labor laws that are sympathetic to Cuban workers, Cuban doctors and nurses, then it means therefore that the United States will have to impose tariff or take away the visas of our politicians. But he did not suggest here that he's going to remove the sanctions if Jamaica continues to hold or to host medical doctors, but he was suggesting that, perhaps if Jamaica is practicing, good labor laws that adhere to, to human rights, it means therefore that the United States will not apply its foreign policy of, shielding or revoking visas from our politicians. But that is something very interesting. Didn't Marco Rubio know about the fact that what Jamaica's laws are as it pertains to Cuban workers, to Cuban medical mission and staff? I think he knows that. I think he would have spoken to the US Embassy and they would have apprised him on the matter. That's the US Embassy in Jamaica, that is. They know everything that happens in Jamaica and they brief these heads of states, particularly those at the State Department, which Marco Rubio heads. So that is something very interesting. I think that Marco Rubio was being very facetious and also very hypocritical. But, foreign policy is hypocritical. It's not something that you must take seriously. Take it seriously in the sense that you have to look beyond what they say. It's often not what they say, but what are they implying? What are they suggesting other than what they have said? And many times, if you are not aware of history, if you're not aware of how the United States function as a global empire, then you will not be able to pick up the subtleties in Marco Rubio's speech that he gave when he went to Jamaica last Wednesday? Yes, I believe it was last Wednesday that he went there, March 26th. Now, let's look at Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is the 72nd, that's the 72nd Secretary of State, and he visited Jamaica on March 26, 2005. Rubio is the first Latino Secretary of State, right? He is the first Latino. Remember now that his parents are from Cuba. He's Cuban American. For all intents and purposes, he is the first Latino. It's interesting, however, that the media is not kicking up a storm over the first Latino. They have mentioned it, but they are not emphasizing it as they do with the first Black president or the first Black Secretary of State, as Black people like to, be they like to look at symbolisms, and they like symbolisms and what they mean, even though they're very superficial indeed. But that is how Black people behave. But Latinos could not care one bit. Now, he's Cuban American, as I've suggested. That's Marco Rubio. Rubio was born in Miami, Florida, on May 28th, 1971, to Cuban parents who emigrated from Cuba due to the Castro Revolution of 1959. I have not seen much information about his parents in terms of, apart from their profession online, other than his father was a banquet bartender while his mother was a stay-at-home mom and a hotel worker. Much has been withheld. Perhaps you can read Mark Rubio's biography and much more information will be outlined therein. Not sure if you have read any biography from him. I have not yet to this moment. Now, while Rubio was born in Florida, he and his parents migrated to Las Vegas, where the family spent 8 years, according to sources I have read. So he grew up in Miami, Florida, but afterwards his parents moved, which is very typical for a lot of Americans to move around states. Now, though raised and baptized in the Roman Catholic Church, he was also baptized in the Mormon Church, the Church of the Latter-day Saints, during his tenure in Las Vegas. Not sure what attracted him to the Church of the Latter-day Saints. He returned subsequently to his Catholic upbringing. He is married to Jeanette Rubio, I think her name is, a union which has produced 4 children. Now, his brief visit to Jamaica, based on what we witnessed at the press conference that was held in Kingston, appeared to be cordial, amicable, yet very superficial. And that is what we'll expand on what we mean by superficial as I move along. Now, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. You need to subscribe to the channel so that we can grow, because what we're seeing coming out of Jamaica, the commentary that is coming out of Jamaica is pathetic. It's sensational, and lots of it is not rooted in critical analysis and critical awareness. So please like, subscribe, because a lot of what is on the horizon is not very pretty. Now, both he and Prime Minister Andrew Holness summed up the visit as one which highlighted security, specifically energy security. They kept on emphasizing energy security, and that is something that we should be concerned about. Now, there was an article in the Trinidad Express. It's not Trinidadian, but I think it's called Trinidad Express. Let me see if I could find that article in which they were saying that the United States is going to impose 25% on all countries that buy Venezuelan and also natural gas from Venezuela, right? So all countries who buy Venezuelan oil and natural gas will be fined in terms of 25% tariff will be imposed on their goods coming into the United States, right? That is an article which I am not able to pull up at the moment. I'm not sure I did pull it up, but I'm not seeing it now. So you can go and research, because that is in fact true, right? It is a true. Now, what we have here is that the Secretary of State was he was also talking about illegal immigration, and confronting the Haitian crisis, a country we are told is plagued by gangs. Now, we're told that the country is plagued by gangs, but Danny Shaw, Professor Danny Shaw, who was, I believe, was a professor at the City University of New York, mentioned in an article that he published in counterpunch.org, that the gangs are controlled by the United States official. And, he has been on the ground many times. He is a fluent speaker of Spanish. Professor Danny Shaw is a Dominican American, and he's fluent in Spanish, in Creole, in Brazilian Portuguese, and I think in some other languages. He's a historian, particularly focusing on diasporic and Black history. Now, that is something interesting that, we have to study. I think that if I am able to, I would be able to pull up. I did save it too. I did not bring it here. The article that was written by Danny Shaw, Professor Danny Shaw, talking about the fact that vacation gangs are controlled by external powers, particularly those coming from the United States. And he has questioned, the head of the gang, that is Cherizer, the fact that how many journalists, United States journalists, very elitist journalists, have met with him. And the more they meet with him, they always come after, after they've met with him, there's always some sort of, huge attacks on the public. And he mentions that many of these elite Haitians are not being attacked by the gangs, right? They are not, the civilians are the ones who are the victims of the angst of the gangs. So how is it that we are hearing from many sources suggesting that the Haitian gangs are controlled by the people who are anti-US imperialism? That is the impression that they would like to give us. But as Professor Danny Shaw suggested in his book, in his article rather, that is not true. I'm not able to pull up this article at the moment. I read it yesterday or day before yesterday. I think I did save it to my email. I am not able to pull up the article in which he spoke about the gangs being controlled by foreign entities. And the fact that the gangs have access to these high-powered weapons coming from the United States. And he talked about the fact also that the understanding of the gangs, and as soon as weaponry or the weapons are extracted from them or taken away from them, then you find that they get them back because they are in collusion. The gangs are in collusion with the Haitian National Police Force, who actually pretend to, to take away the guns from them. At the end of the day, after having taken away these guns, they, return in the hands of the criminals. Something that is very interesting. How can it be that after they have abducted some of these criminals and supposedly taken away their arms coming from the United States, that they are again found on the streets? So there are questions to be asked there. Now, we talk about, Andrew Holness spoke about trade and deficit in terms of, in his summary of the meeting. Remember now that what we saw at the press conference is just for public consumption. A lot of what is stated or was stated came at behind closed doors, the meeting behind closed doors with the Secretary of State, which you and I will not have access to. So we have to be very mindful of that. Now, they're talking about mutually beneficial deals and agreements that Marco Rubio went there to formulate with Jamaica, opportunity for investments, liquefied natural gas, that's the production of liquefied natural gas, which the United States seems to want to be the owner and the producer of. They want now to take charge of being the primary dispenser of oil in the Caribbean region or to the Caribbean region. So what they will do, they will use Guyana and Suriname. And that is why Marco Rubio, after he left Jamaica, he immediately went over to South American countries, these two South American countries, Guyana and Suriname, to speak to them about, refining and producing oil and liquefied natural gas, which the United States definitely will be at the helm of. And therefore, that will be because the United States wants to sever ties with Venezuela and want the Venezuelan economy to hurt. So in terms of hurting the Venezuelan economy, then they'll be able to, get what they want. Because when you now bring an economy to the ground, right, and they have no ways of or no means of survival, then the people are going to rise up against the government. Prime Minister Andrew Holness also spoke about mining opportunities of the environment in terms of, we have been hearing in recent times talking about the rare earth minerals and, so that is about, digging up the atmosphere, the environment, the soil, to find rare earth minerals, which the United States is seeking. The United States is looking for full spectrum dominance, and I did tell you about that. So it wants to control everything, not only oil, but even the earth, the atmosphere, the space. The United States wants to control the entire world. And there is not a segment of the world that the United States does not want to leave its imprint on. Very important that you understand that. So whether the minerals are to be found in Russia or in Europe or in Jamaica or in Latin America, the United States is searching for them, diligently searching for them, and is desirous of controlling all of these resources, because that is how it will achieve its goal of full spectrum dominance. Now, I think they spoke ad nauseum about safety and prosperity, whatever that means. And Andrew Holness likes to talk about, and he referred to that in his speech, about the wars on the gangs. And as you know, I suggested previously that, as Professor Danny Shaw suggested, that the gangs in Haiti are controlled by the very US empire, and it's not controlled by, and also along with the Haitian elites, right? So the US empire, along with the Haitian elites, control the Haitian gangs. And they're killing right, left, and center in that country. And the people are trying to rise up against them, but it's very difficult at the moment. They have two powerful weapons. The weapons that they have are so powerful that the Haitians are not going to be able, the civilians are not going to be able to counteract what happens there in Haiti. Now, they also spoke about, Marco Rubio spoke about, a significant part of the Jamaican economy being tied to tourism. So he looked at the whole matter of the travel advisories. And we know that recently in January that Jamaica, travel advisory was actually elevated to category 3. Is it? Yeah, category 3, which I think that's a very high rating. No, low rating, I should say, in the sense that the US is warning its citizens against traveling to Jamaica due to safety and security, due to their safety and security. Now, the fact is that the travel advisory, according to Marco Rubio, he will definitely review our travel advisory, which I'm sure he would have reviewed before he went to Jamaica to see, because according to him, we have, and Andrew Holness did suggest that in his speech, that crime and violence have been reduced to a very low, maybe the lowest in 2 decades, according to him. Don't know if that is true, but that is what the Prime Minister is saying. I'm not sure if the United States is going to believe him, because one of the things is that it's one thing that they say things in public, another thing is what the United States impression that they have of us. And I'm sure they know that we are a murderous society, whether we like to hide it or not. The United States Embassy in Jamaica knows that Jamaica is a murderous country, and perhaps might know that we're trying to hide some of our murder statistics. Because if we're not truthful in everything that we say, then how can we also be truthful with our crime, murder statistics? I am not sure we are in any way truthful about what we're suggesting there. Now, he suggested also that, that the gangs, that's Marco Rubio suggests that the gangs in Jamaica are aligned to non-government gang institutions, right? Which he terms as transnational gangs, right? That they are internationally cooperating, and they have international cooperation. Now, how many weapons come from the United States? According to Marco Rubio, and he suggested, he acknowledged then that definitely the guns are coming from the United States, and that they are going into countries like Jamaica and Haiti, and they are causing a lot of mayhem. And he will be working with Jamaica to see how they could halt the importation or the trafficking of arms into Jamaica and the Caribbean region at large. Now, that is just a lot of talk, because at the end of the day, this is business. And there's no way, there is absolutely no way that they are going to stop that armament. Notice that the Democrats love to talk about controlling, they want to get rid of the Second Amendment, but every time successive presidents get into office, have they ever even crafted an executive order, an executive law suggesting that the Second Amendment be banned? Now, I'm not for the banning of the Second Amendment. I'm just suggesting that the Democratic Party likes to talk about banning the Second Amendment, but they know that they don't want to do it, because if they do it, then they are going to definitely suffocate the armament industry that reeks in hundreds of thousands of dollars, billions perhaps, on the sale of arms all over the world. Now, Marco Rubio also posited that he is going to implement what he calls the Jolt Fusion Center, and that is to address lottery scamming. And I've always thought that lottery scamming, just like what we see with the gangs, are also connected at the top, right? The people at the top are the ones who control that industry as well. And the Jolt Fusion Center is an intelligence software. He's going to see how he can partner. That's Marco Rubio of the United States. He's going to see how they can partner with Jamaica to find skills in order to counteract, these lottery scammings. That's what they talk about. Now, Marco Rubio also postulates that he's not about stopping aid, right? That he definitely wants to continue U.S. aid to the country, but he's going to, whatever happens with this aid, he's saying the aid will work with countries that align with American policy, right? So the aid is for countries which align with American foreign policy. And that is an implied statement. Those who do what we tell them to do, even though it might not be in their national interest. I repeat, those countries who do or which do what the United States desire that they do without any sort of remonstrance, even though it might not be in their national interest, right? So Marco Rubio wants Jamaica to work with the American embassy. He thinks that everything that the Americans are doing is in Jamaica's best interest and the interest of the region at large, right? Remember now that this is not only about Jamaica, but it's about the Caribbean and Latin America on a grander scale. So foreign aid will eventually go to, for opportunities, go towards opportunities for skills training. That means the skills are for also enhancing and fostering the U.S. military empire and its goals and agendas. Also, foreign aid will go towards opportunities for trade now, and the foreign aid will go for opportunities for security and safety. Now, when the US speaks about security, it does not mean taking care of you and keeping you safe. Just like militarism in the United States is not keeping the US citizens safe. In fact, makes them more a dangerous harm, right? Militarism is not at all keeping the United States citizens safe. And many of them there are thinking, oh, yeah, the military is, fighting terrorism to keep us safe. And that is not the mission. That is not the goal. Now, Marco Rubio mentioned, he kept on saying that everything that they're doing is for Jamaica to cooperate on a number of fronts, right? Because the United States deems Jamaica to be one of its very important allies. Remember now that the United States does not have any allies, it has interests. And I think that it was Henry Kissinger who said that, who made the statement, in my words, I'm now paraphrasing what he said, that it's very important for American allies. To be an American enemy, he says, is dangerous. I think that was the word he used. But to be an American ally is fatal, right? To be an American ally, enemy, let me repeat that. To be an American enemy is dangerous, but to be an American ally is fatal, because that is what the United States does. It stabs you behind the back. And that is why you cannot just think that what you saw there at the press conference is what that meeting was all about. Now, incidentally, we must also know, and I was trying to recall yesterday, what event, and many times it happens, but there was a recent event in which a Secretary of State, I can't remember if it was Jeff Sessions or one of those Secretary of State, who had gone to a particular country, can't remember if it was Venezuela or it was Russia, and the agreement that the Secretary of State had with the country, with that country, whilst he was returning to the United States, he was called and he was told that that agreement was no longer in force, and they are going to upend that agreement. So it means, therefore, whatever Marco Rubio said in Jamaica is not binding, is not binding. Let me repeat that. Whatever Marco Rubio mentioned in Jamaica is not necessarily binding, right? It's not binding upon the nation state. It can change its mind, right? It can change its mind at any given moment. Now, Marco Rubio says that, Jamaica felt like home, right? To him, it's almost like he was in South Florida, and he thought that he was at home, according to him. Sounded very hypocritical, but we know that there are lots of Jamaicans, indeed, who reside in South Florida. Something that he said that grabbed my attention was when he mentioned the fact that the United States is restructuring how it does things. It means, therefore, that the United States is coming across as this country that is promoting freedom and democracy around the world. And they would like to suggest that countries like Venezuela is a terrorist society. So all countries, if the United States deems a country to be a terrorist country, it means, therefore, that all other countries should do so likewise. And if they have any interest or any pursuit of any agreement, be they economic, political, educational, health agreements, it means, therefore, that the United States is going to stop them and they might be castigated by the United States. Now, here was what he said that was dangerous and shows the continuity of government in the United States, which shows that both political parties in the United States are together, right? And that they are not, they're aligned and they are fighting for waging a war against anybody who go against their foreign policy. He says that most of what he is batting for, the Trump administration is batting for in terms of foreign policy, he said that Condoleezza Rice and all other US Secretary of States wanted those agendas. They were fighting for those similar goals and objectives. They might not have achieved them, and perhaps now Trump and the United States military-industrial complex have expanded that they are now able to achieve the goals and objectives that people like the likes of the Hillary Clintons and all other Secretary of States would not have mastered. Now, what I gathered from Rubio's speech is that the foreign policy that the Trump administration and all successive presidents, have been pushing, forward is based on quid pro quo. It's a quid pro quo foreign policy. It means that for that, you do according to what we say, or we'll give you something, but it might not be for the national interest. It could be just for the elites, Generally, it's for the elites and the government, not for in the interest of the national citizens. That's what you have to understand. We have lived this game, this drama for long. It's time for you now to rise up. Look at what is happening in Haiti. Look at what is happening all over the world in the Gaza area, and realize that these people do not mean you well. These people do not mean you well. And talk about Haiti. I think that they want to have an ethnic cleansing in Haiti too. That's my thing. It's very hard. It's hard to do that because there are, I think, 13 million people. Some say that. Some people say it's 11 million. Some say 12, 13 million people who reside in Haiti. Who knows? But, we have millions of people in Haiti. And I think that their agenda is also same as what they're having in the Gaza area to get rid of these people. Now, Rubio said many times that the foreign aid needs to be in alignment with U.S. foreign policy. U.S. aid needs to be in alignment with U.S. foreign policy. So whatever aid that is proffered to Andrew Holness or to Stuart Young of Trinidad and Tobago or to Mia Mottley of Barbados and all the other sitting presidents, Dr. Orfana of Guyana, all of these aid is going to be linked to U.S. interests, right? Not to the interest of the nation states to which the aid is being offered. Hope you understand that. In terms of Haiti, U.S. then let, Marco Rubio said that we are at a phase where there needs to be a rapid expansion of the Haitian police force. It's not Marco Rubio who said this, it's actually Andrew Holness. In a question that was asked, when he was asked a question about, what is happening in Haiti, I can't remember one of the journalists who asked him that question. It was strange also, might I suggest here, talk about journalists. Why would they have a press conference in Jamaica and you have two U.S. foreign journalists to ask questions? Weird. I think there should have been journalists coming from the Caribbean, right? From Trinidad, from Barbados, and from Jamaica to ask questions pertaining to the region and not to what is happening, even though we're interested in Yemen, even though these are very important matters too. But the fact is that when they go to their region, then they can deal with that, or in the States. Journalists can ask them about what is happening in the Middle East. But in terms of what is happening in the region, I think our journalists should be Jamaicans and they should be from other Caribbean or Latin American region to see what is happening from Venezuela, for the likes of me to ask what is really happening. So Andrew Holness said when he was asked in terms of how Jamaica is going to partner with the United States to solve the Haitian crisis, he says that we are at a phase where there needs to be a rapid expansion of the Haitian National Police Force, which he calls the HNP, to take on the gangs. Now, remember now that Andrew Holness says that there's a war on the gangs in Jamaica, right? He's waging a war against the gangs in Jamaica. And I really wonder, who are the gangs in Gordon House, right? And who does the war need to be waged against in the first place? But, our priorities are messed up as a people, and we always look at the wrong people and in the wrong direction in terms of where the levels of criminality is coming from. And oftentimes, as I've suggested on many, many occasions, it's coming from the top. From the top. It's not coming from the bottom. Very important that you understand that. Please now also like and share. Very important that you like and share the video so the video can be shared with as many people. And leave a comment at the end of the video. I have also something very interesting at the end of the program to share with you from Peter Eskew and his article this morning in the Jamaica Gleaner. Now, Dr. Andrew Holness, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, also mentioned that the Cuban doctors have an excellent relationship with Jamaica. And he said that they're treated within our labor laws. And the US's characterization is not applicable to Jamaica, right? That is what he suggested. But does it have to be applicable to Jamaica? A lot of times we know that the United States, a lot of what they say, right, is not applicable to the countries that they speak about. But it's the interest that they are pursuing right? And I'm happy that Andrew Holness was able to say that, but he must now understand that the United States, when they make their assertions, right, when they actually cast their allegations, they are not suggesting that it's real. It's just what is aligned with their foreign policy. And that is what Rubio was trying to suggest. Rubio, right? That is what Rubio was trying to suggest. I think the Prime Minister did not get it, that US foreign aid is definitely going to be aligned with US foreign policy. We get what we want, right? Even if it is not, a matter of integrity, right? It's not ethical, I should say. That's the word I was looking for. Now, so Andrew Holness was very strident, which it was his right to do, right? In suggesting that the medical staff coming from Cuba, they adhere to Jamaica labor laws. And there are no labor law issues in Jamaica. He says that we have no problems with the doctors, the Cuban doctors. The doctors are not paid, I think, are not paid poorly. They do not operate, I should say, as forced laborers, as the United States is suggesting. Now, I would like to know from Dr. Andrew Holness and from the other Caribbean leaders, is it true that the communist regime in Cuba, that the monies have to be paid to them? Do the doctors? I know that the doctors who might be married and, have Jamaican citizenship and they might be working independent of doctors coming from Cuba. So there are Cuban, let us now be very clear. There are Cuban doctors and nurses who have been married and might be citizens of Jamaica, and they are not going to be treated as the Cubans who are contracted by the state of Cuba and sent to Jamaica. Now, when the Cubans are contracted by their state and dispatched to Jamaica, whom does the Jamaican government pay? The Cuban government, or do the workers get their salaries directly? Or is there a part that is sent to the Cuban government and a part given to the workers on shore, right, on the ground? I would like to know what happens there, because there could be some truth to what the United States is suggesting. I think there is some truth to it. It's not the entire truth, as the United States likes to utter false truths, half-truths, I should say. Now, I was asking the question, and I probably should reiterate, why did they have the journalists who are coming from the United States asking Rubio a question that they could have asked him in the United States and not in Jamaica? Didn't make any sense when there were other relevant questions that could have been asked. And our journalists, apart from the one coming from Nationwide, really did not ask any questions that were of any consequence, apart from they asked about the green card. The questions were a little bit shallow, but again, maybe their questions were vetted and they could not ask deeper questions. I'm not saying that the questions were not relevant, but there were all the deeper questions that needed to have been asked. Now, on the matter of China, very important, Rubio was, he almost lost his composure. Notice that? And he is a person that has crafted muscular foreign policy agendas against the Chinese. And he says that the Chinese investment in the Caribbean and the region at large is predatory, and they operate predatory practices in which they own workers. They loan huge sort of loan agreements and hold it over the heads of these countries that they actually lend their monies to. And they have unfair labor practices, which the United States also has, right? And they're often subsidized. He says that, which is true, that the government often subsidizes them and then they go back to the country and they still have to charge them a high fee for their services. And some of that is true. Now, the question was asked by one of our journalists from TVJ, in fact, about the green card holders being fearful of going back to Jamaica because of what the laws are. And some green card holders, their green cards are being withheld, or they're just simply deported because of, whatever controversies that they might be engaged in or involved in. Now, Rubio was very hypocritical where that's concerned. First of all, he did not know what that green card holders are permanent residents, I should say, and was asking her, "Are you talking about permanent residents in the United States?" Yes, those are green card, what we call green card holders of green cards, right? That is what it refers to, and he should know that. He's the Secretary of State of the United States of America. So when he was asked that question, he mentioned that yes, that they have nothing to fear. Only if they engage themselves and running around like lunatics and are affiliated with gangs and also terrorist organizations. But that is subjective. Being affiliated with gangs or being affiliated with any terrorist institution is highly subjective, because the United States might say that Venezuela is a terrorist state, but you might not deem Venezuela as a terrorist state. I mean, for all intents and purposes, the United States might say Jamaica tomorrow is a terrorist state, while you might not deem Jamaica. And what if they deem Jamaica to be a terrorist state and you are a green card holder and you go to visit your country, and then when you are returning to the United States, your green card is withheld from you, because Venezuelans in Venezuela are now concerned, because if they should go to Venezuela because of what this sort of angst and this sort of aggressive foreign policy that the US holds towards Venezuela, Venezuelans in the United States who are holders of green cards are very fearful of entering or going back to their country and returning to the United States. They are perhaps concerned that their green cards might be withheld, withdrawn, revoked, and they might be deported to their country. Now, the whole matter of illegal immigration, Marco Rubio said that Jamaica is not a large force of illegal immigration, and that they're not in the top 10 or among the top 20 countries in terms of illegal immigration, right? So that might not be a problem, he suggested, as far as legal immigration is concerned. But illegal immigration is one in which, the United States make you illegal in terms of the laws that they're crafting there, right? And they can revoke your work permit or revoke your student ID. Even your degrees can be revoked if you are deemed to be a terrorist. Now, remember now that you can think you're behaving yourself, but somebody that you do not know, or an organization that you do not know that the United States deems as a terrorist, then you might find yourselves enmeshed in that, or with that person in that organization, and then you are going to be deported. Those of you also who are traveling back to the United States, who might visit Jamaica or any other country, and you're traveling back to the United States, there is a new law in which the government also can now, have access to your phones, to your social media websites, and also to your laptops or any electronic device. The United States can pull anything up and they can screenshot whatever you have on your screen, emails sent by whatever. So if you're speaking anti-Trump, if you're sending anti-Trump emails or anti-Trump's memes, then you can also, the visa can be revoked and you can be dispatched to your country or any third country around the world, right? So deportation now does not only mean that you can be dispatched or returned to your country of origin. You can be dispatched. You can go to, and you can be deported to any third country. Very important that you understand that. Now, as regards China, Marco Rubio suggested that, the global trade is unfair toward the United States. And I was asking the question here, who is really behind the global trade? Who formulates the principles and the laws of global trade? Who heads global trade? The United States of America. Incidentally, when the United States seeks also to impose a 25% tariff on nations who buy oil and gas, natural gas from Venezuela. The United States also buys oil and natural gas from Venezuela. And I think up to January, they procured oil and natural gas from Venezuela. So do what we say and not what we do. That is U.S. foreign policy for all of us, and we must understand that. Now, Marco Rubio suggested that he wants more productive capacities located in our hemisphere, and that was also an attack on China, because he's suggesting, why should we run to, another, to way around the world, right? And to find and to get, our productive needs, right? And productive capacities. So he's suggesting that he wants back the production centers here in the hemisphere. So we could have some sweatshops in Jamaica, right? Or in Haiti, send some sweatshops there and give Jamaica some, little money, and they'll like to work for that, because that's investments, right? It's U.S. trade and investments. And while the elites are reeking out billions of dollars from what they're doing, the Jamaican people will be eating the crumbs from the table as they normally do. Now, Marco Rubio said that the Prime Minister has the vision to see better jobs in Jamaica, jobs which will be created from the productive capacities that the United States seeks to return to this hemisphere from, evidently from your boy, from your country, China. So he suggested that there will be extraordinary opportunities for energy and natural liquefied gas, which I'm suggesting that they will domicile in Guyana and also in Suriname. And that will be transported to Jamaica and other parts of the region. We talk about mining opportunities off the seabed, and Marco Rubio suggests that tourism is a significant part of Jamaica's economy, and he will revise the travel advisories that were designed for America's travelers who travel to Jamaica on a frequent basis. Now, what was very interesting with this tourism, issue, and with what he stated about tourism, was our Prime Minister's, Dr. Andrew Holness's statement as regards tourism, and suggesting that our crime rate is 0.01% with regard to deaths of tourists on our shores in Jamaica. But, when he said that, he said it so confidently and so proudly, as if to suggest that Jamaican citizens and their lives are not important. What if we had a murder rate and a crime rate of 0.01 for Jamaican citizens, right? But he was more interested in bragging on the Secretary of State, suggesting that Jamaica has a negligible crime rate as far as tourists are concerned. Now, Marco Rubio talked about the global war on gangs. He said that he wants to concoct another expression, because he does not, maybe he doesn't want to use that word, the war on gangs. Maybe it sounds too suspicious. And that's what he's suggesting that he might concoct. But he agrees with Andrew Holness that there ought to be a war waged against gangs, right? And terrorists, as far as we're concerned. Now, security is a baseline for everything. That is what Marco Rubio is suggesting. Security is the baseline for everything. So they will frighten you, and they will tell you that this person is, or this country is a threat, and you have to listen, because it's the baseline. It's not laws. So the laws that are a baseline for everything. Is security is the baseline for everything. That was essentially what the Prime Minister and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, spoke about. Now, please make sure you like and subscribe, right? Please like the video, and please leave a comment on the video. Now, there was a commentary written here this morning by Peter Espute. All right, Peter Espute wrote a very interesting article this morning, carrying a big stick, right? And that is what he's saying, and he's referring to Marco Rubio. Let us see what he has to say. I am sure that United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio did not fly from Washington, D.C. to tell us that when he gets back home, he will reevaluate the U.S. travel advisory for Jamaica to reflect the current reality regarding crime. He could have asked the U.S. ambassador to Jamaica or the first secretary to inform us of that, or he could have made a telephone call. And the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, did not take himself here to repeat his threat in person that if we didn't send home the more than 400 Cuban doctors and nurses serving Jamaicans, he would cancel the U.S. visas of PM Holness and Minister of Health Tofton and their wives and children. In fact, he even said that the alleged exploitation of Cuban health workers he is concerned about might not be taking place in Jamaica. He would have been briefed on that long ago by U.S. agents based in Jamaica who keep track of things like that. And that is true. True. That is exactly true, Peter Espute, that he would have been apprised of, the treatment of Cuban doctors and nurses in Jamaica long before he came. No, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio did not come here to talk about Cuban doctors. That's what he's suggesting. The Honorable Mr. Rubio, sorry, I forget that the Republic threw away those trappings of feudalism centuries ago. Our road to Republic does not go that far. Our politicians love imperial titles like Most Honorable and Your Worship. Let me start again. U.S. Secretary of State Rubio flew here because the U.S. government, Red President Trump, wants something, and he needed to make himself clear to PM Holness in person. So Peter Espute is suggesting that Trump and his Secretary of State Marco Rubio want something from Jamaica that is not going to be stated to the ordinary Jamaican. Remember that the mantra of President Donald Trump is to MAGA, make America great again. And by America, he means the US of A, not the many islands and nations of the Americans. He has no plans to make Jamaica great. He doesn't have any plans to make America great in terms of, and let me just lecture Peter Espute here. He does not have any plan. Trump does not have any plan to make Americans great. He has his America great again, to make America great again, is to make the military America of America great again, to make America an empire that is uncontested, that is unparalleled on the global scene, on the global stage. So this is not for the benefit of Americans, it's for the benefit of the US military industrial complex and the American elites. And I think that Peter Espute should know better than that. He has no plans to make Jamaica great. He wants something from us that will MAGA, and exactly what that is not disclosed at the press conference last Wednesday. His one-day visit has left us guessing and wondering what is going on. That is exactly what I was asking. What was that all about? When I actually listened to the press conference, I actually viewed it on my phone. I was saying to myself, what is really going on? What really is happening here with this press conference? It didn't seem real, quite frankly. It was US President Teddy Roosevelt that summed up the US approach to foreign diplomacy as speak softly and carry a big stick. The Trump administration likes the big stick approach, but they don't much go in for the speak softly part. When the Trump government wants something, they are not shy to shout it from the mountaintops, which is good because at the same time, we know what they want. They're not like the Joe Bidens and the Kamala Harrises who pretend to be nice and they're not nice. In order to MAGA, they want to take away Greenland from Denmark and next Canada, so it becomes the 51st state of the United States, repossess the Panama Canal zone, and turn Gaza into a tourist beachfront resort, the Mar without the Lago. The Trump administration has loudly threatened to impose tariffs on the products of longtime allies, Canada and the EU, those they tolerate Mexico and their sworn enemies, China and Venezuela, but not Putin's Russia, and all in less than 2 months. But I must say that he has imposed some travel ban on the Russians, and that is also dependent, conditional on what is going to be achieved with the US and Russia talks. I thought Rubio spoke quite softly last Wednesday, something, but he was very angry when he spoke about China, right? Did you notice that, Peter Espew, that he was very angry and almost lost his composure when China came up? In an online media briefing last Tuesday about Secretary Rubio's two-day Caribbean tour, U.S. Special Envoy for Latin America, Mauricio Claver-Carone, declared that Jamaica is probably our most like-minded partner in the Caribbean. Jamaica is probably our most like-minded partner in the Caribbean. We're slaves, evidently, and that is what they have to say about us. Look at what we did with the IMF, that we were able to ink out the most austere, the most rigid IMF agreement in the history of the IMF, because they know that Jamaicans are slaves. Now, what is the diplomat, Senor Claver-Carone, saying? That PM Holness is like a Donald Trump. He's a baby Trump, right? Certainly, he's saying that Donald Trump considers PM Holness to be on his side. Remember PM Holness's visit to Mar-a-Lago on March 22nd, 2019? Remember the meeting of U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo with selected Caribbean leaders in Jamaica in January 2020? PM Mia Mottley of Barbados described that meeting as an attempt to divide the regional bloc. But she went over to, what's his name? Joe Biden's, what was it again? The free trade agreement, whatever, in California. The FTAA, free trade, whatever, of the Americas that Biden held, in which he excluded Venezuela from attending. So, and PM Mottley went. So PM Mottley is not necessarily anti-imperialism. She's not. U.S. Secretary of State Rubio did not ask for a meeting with CARICOM. While in Jamaica, he met separately with the leaders of Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, and Haiti. PM Holness has assisted Trump from his very first term in this divide and rule strategy intended to MAGA, to make America great again. Because Dr. Andrew Holness does not understand foreign policy very well. He doesn't. Now, let's go now on to what we have here. Let's move on to what Peter Espew continues to posit here. We have a little general election coming up later this year. Who does Trump want to come out victorious? Do not rule out the possibility that one of the purpose of the visit to Jamaica by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was to make Andrew Holness look great again. That cannot be done with a phone call. Could be, don't know. While Canada and the UK and France and the Ukraine tremble before the man wielding a big stick, Jamaica gets the USA to agree to reconsider lifting the travel advisory. Rubio was full of praise for how the Holness government has been able to reduce the murder rate. What is the message here? Well, he was not necessarily, he just saying that Jamaica has recorded the lowest public rates in the region. Don't think he was gloating about that. Don't think I agree here, Peter Espew, because again, Marco Rubio can react in public in one way, and behind the scenes, when he goes back to Washington, when he goes back to the Pentagon at Foggy Bottom, he is going to say something else. What exactly did the U.S. Secretary of State and Brogard talk about? Before the meeting, U.S. Special Envoy Claver-Carone advised that security issues would dominate the discussions. According to the Gleaner, he said that the talks present a huge opportunity for closer focus on commercial shipping lanes through Jamaica, his country's maritime security and narcotics and arms trafficking, which would make trafficking and drug running much more severe. At the press conference last Wednesday, PM Holness said, "We affirmed our commitment to enhancing cooperation in combating transnational crime, ensuring the collective safety of our citizens, and neutrally secured borders. We discussed a global war on gangs, and there is already significant policy alignment with both countries in this regard." PM Holness noted that the U.S. has been instrumental in supporting Jamaica's efforts to bolster its maritime domain awareness and intelligence surveillance capabilities, which are crucial in the fight against organized criminal networks. This must be considered alongside the visit of PM Holness to Israel in 2017, where we are told discussions centered on Jamaica obtaining surveillance technology. I can see all the potential for cooperation in a variety of fields that relate to economy, to security, to technology. This is something that we eagerly are interested in doing with you, Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu, yeah, remarked on that occasion. Netanyahu, I should say. Sometimes it's PM Benjamin Netanyahu remarked on that occasion. There is a lot about Jamaica's foreign policy that we do not know. Agreed. There is a lot about Jamaica's foreign policy that we do not know. Maybe we'll be able to find out exactly what has been going on in a few months. Yeah, we don't know. Because what we saw with Andrew Holness and Marco Rubio was only for public consumption, but it was not the real deal. And we've got to understand that. We've got to really delve, observe, read, and become to take matters, we need to take matters more seriously. I think all of this sensational news that we see on Jamaica's podcast about Jamaica is, whatever Andrew Holness is rebuffing Marco Rubio and all of these sensational news pieces that came from the Gleaner and also from the Jamaica Observer and from the poorly, educated podcasts coming out of Jamaica. Right? We do not see a grasp of foreign policy, a grasp of history, a grasp of the US empire and its role in the world. If you don't understand the United States empire and what its agenda is, you are going to be deceived. You are going to be deceived. Thank you so much for joining. Please like, share, and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you in another video. Adios.